So this video is about the aloneness of awakening and why solitude is a very, very powerful spiritual practice to realize your true self. So, to awaken fully to your truest nature, to your truest identity beyond the mind, body, and ego, one must decondition their mind. See, all these ideologies, philosophies, education, all these views that you hold, that we hold, are fine. But in order to realize your oneness with reality, your unity, your yoga, your interconnectedness, your intimacy with the 10,000 things in the universe, one must decondition their minds. We have come to so many conclusions about life, about how life ought to be. But so long as we have all these opinions on how life should be, we can't see life as it is, for what life really is. Our vision is obstructed. Now, why solitude and aloneness is so vital and such a powerful spiritual progress to awaken your spiritual identity is that once you practice solitude or you go into aloneness in meditation, you realize that your truest nature, your truest being, is separate from your ego mind complex, which is attached to all these thoughts, opinions, biases, likes and dislikes on reality. There's a different part of you which is separate from all this, and this part, which is pure consciousness, which is pure beingness, pure isness, is the same material that pervades this whole existence. So aloneness, to be alone, right, does not mean loneliness. Aloneness and loneliness are two completely different states of mind. But too often we think that to be alone means to be lonely. This is not the case. You know, if you look at the life of Jesus, he was so alone, arguably the most alone person on the planet, because no one understood what he was saying. People thought he was a madman. Even his 12 disciples didn't know what he was saying, didn't know what he was speaking about. The kingdom of heaven, kingdom of God. The Father and I in heaven are one. Are one. No one knew what he was talking about. But was he alone? Yes. Was he lonely? Not at all. Why is that? Same with the Buddha. The Buddha, terribly alone. Very alone, very isolated. But was he lonely? Not at all. Probably the least lonely person on the planet. So we can see here, loneliness isn't dictated by our externalities. It's something internal. It's our interiority. It's how we carry ourselves within. It's a matter of the spirit. It's a matter of spirituality. So aloneness can be extraordinarily blissful and peaceful and joyful. But too often we have this fear of loneliness. We have a fear of being alone, don't we? Why? Why do we fear being alone as humans? Why does that happen? Right? See, there's a rapper called AZ and Nas. AZ, East Coast American rapper from the 90s, hip hop. He's one of his lyrics, born alone, die alone. We're born alone and we die alone. Aloneness is your true nature. You are always alone, even if you have a twin, even if you have a wife, even if you have kids, you're always alone. You're always within yourself. Now, humans, what we do is because we've never sat with ourselves, is that we pacify and we try and alleviate that that fear of loneliness and we go running towards amusement, entertainment, relationship, object, substance, state of mind. We try to pacify ourselves, distract ourselves, cram our consciousness, our minds full of distractions to run away from ourselves. This is why meditation and sitting with our eyes closed is one of the hardest things to do. You know, humankind has gone to the moon, made rockets, aeroplanes, buildings, massive bombs, but they can't master their own minds. It's not easy to be at peace. So all these efforts from entertainment, movies, ambition, success, relationships, all these are an attempt to escape one's own mind and to escape a loneliness. Right. Now, this can only take you so far, because eventually at the end of the night, at the end of the day, when you go to bed, you're back with yourself. You're stuck in yourself. So that's why meditation is a powerful thing, because meditation is entering into that aloneness. It's entering into the dimension, the domain, the chamber of the mind. It's getting still and silent. Now, what will happen if you just start meditating is that the mind will lash out at you because there's been years and years of dirt which haven't been addressed. But if you can persevere and keep pushing through meditative practice, you will come face to face with your true nature eventually. And if you're lucky enough, if you go into that aloneness, if you go into that solitude of the mind, if you go into that silence, that stillness, which we are all so scared of, you can get a glimpse into the oneness of reality. Now, for some people, this is getting too off into a different spiritual realm, but as you deepen, for those who deepen their meditative practice, there's an experience of oneness to be had. So by intentionally facing that aloneness, that void in meditation, this intimacy, this affinity, this connectedness, this yoga, this unity unveils itself to you. You realize you are connected to all things. Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching says the 10,000 things. You realize you are not separate from the other person, to the other animal, to the other tree. You're separate in a relative term, but you share the same awareness. You share the same source of creation. The source of creation dwells within each and every individual, right? And that is your true identity. And that thing, call it by any name, call it self, call it soul, call it source of creation, call it Atman, whatever your preferred title is, that thing is present in every single human being. And that thing, that self, that pure consciousness can be awakened and realized through meditative practice, through becoming silent, through becoming entirely alone. And once you realize that dimension of yourself, you realize you are eternal, infinite, imperishable. And then as a natural subsequent reaction, you start to have love for everything else in existence, because you realize that this love that I feel inside myself is also dwelling upon that person, and that man, that woman, that lady, that old man. I'm sharing the same being. We think we're different from each other. We think that we are all so different. We're all individual, unique people with different personalities. But the only thing that separates us from each other is our egos. These egos are very limited identifications of ourselves. We actually occupy the same thing. So once you deepen that meditative practice, once you go into your aloneness, once you come face to face with your pure consciousness, beyond the ego, beyond the mind, beyond the body, beyond the superficial self-identifications, once you get connected to your source, you realize you are not separate from the universe. You realize you're not separate from God. You realize you are not separate from creation. In fact, the Creator dwells within you and in all beings. So there's a symbiotic relationship you have with the whole of creation. So this is why aloneness is so vital, is so profound, is so pivotal. So once you have a glimpse into that reality of life, then you are completely joyfully alone. You don't need validation from externalities. You don't require somebody else, like a romantic partner, to make you happy. You start craving and slaving for external validation, because that source, that gold mine, that lotus, that 1,000-petal lotus is dwelling within you. These all this experience, commonly referred to as samadhi, or awakening of the heart chakra, or the third eye, or the crown chakra, this can be experienced through practices of yoga, meditation, postures, mantras, bandanas. So there's no need. This is when the awakening has begun. So the spiritual person is self-sufficient unto themselves. They have self-love, self-respect. So then naturally the craving and slaving for another human totally evaporates, because you realize your oneness with the whole of creation. This is what Jesus speaks about the kingdom of heaven. Buddha speaks about nirvana. The yogis speak about samadhi and moksha, liberation. As you can see here in the Bhagavad Gita, this is the experience of oneness. He's experiencing his unity with all things in creation. So that's why aloneness is so pivotal, and that's why we must realize that we aren't these finite, limited, temporary beings with all these fears associated. Because if we think that we are just these finite mind and bodies, then obviously we're going to have fear of death. We're going to have fear, anger, anxiety, hatred, greed, all these lower levels of consciousness that cripple us and are obstacles for us to emancipate and blossom into our true nature. But once we realize who we really are, not the mind is a shifting soup of emotional states. The body is always changing from a baby to a boy to a young man to an old man, and to the ego, the personality, which always changes. At work we wear one face, at home we wear one mask, when we're with our friends we wear one mask. All these are not concrete identifiers of who we are. Who we are is the knower of all this, the watcher of all this. We are the self, we are the Atman. Once that is tasted, the awakening process has begun, and then all this suffering that goes along with the misidentification with our egos vanishes completely. We realize we are infinite. We realize we are boundless. We realize we are liberated. We realize our oneness with the Creator. So that's the video. I hope that helped. And let me know what you thought. Thank you.